Hey internet, Caligula here, and welcome to my favorite speed build that I have ever done. As you can see by the title, today we are creating a groovy 70s retreat. In the corner of the screen, it actually says funky 70s retreat, and I actually had some dispute in my mind about what to call it because technically I read groovy is not really 70s slang. Funky is technically more accurate to the 70s, but in my opinion, this build is pretty dang groovy, so that's what I'm going to call it in the end. So if you want to download this build, it is available on the gallery. My origin ID is kaligulaYT. There are actually two versions of this build available on the gallery. One of them is a shell of the house, so it's just the exterior, and then I added in some lighting. And the other one is a fully furnished build. And the reason why I uploaded two different versions is because in this build I'm showcasing some of PEACEMAKE'S CC, specifically his mid-century eclectic wallpapers, I believe that's what they're called, and his bowling night stuff pack add-on. I was actually surprised when the Sim Supply did a poll recently when he was asking people to rate all of the different expansion packs and game packs and stuff packs. I was surprised to see that the Bowling Night stuff pack ranks so low. And on the one hand, I kind of get it because the gameplay elements that were added in the Bowling Night stuff pack were not that great. Like, I hardly ever have my Sims go bowling. It's a fun activity when they do go, but yeah, I just don't really use it that often. But I love the style of the decor in that stuff pack. And so I was really happy when I found out that there was actually an add-on that Peacemaker had made because, yeah, I love that decor and I just want more of it. I want more of it. So the build that we have going on today is actually, I built this on one of the lots in Granite Falls, which I chose to build it there because the setting was perfect because this house is a lake house. I was actually inspired to build this house after I saw an article that I think was titled That 70s House in the Washington Post. I saw pictures of that house and I knew immediately that I wanted to build it. I'll insert some screenshots of that house right here. It was this beautiful lake house with these windows that faced out onto the lake. Actually, what you're seeing right now, the part of the house that's currently facing the front of the lot, I end up flipping that around and making that the back of the house later on. So there were a couple difficult things about the exterior of this build. The first thing was the roof, because as you can see, the roof extends all the way down to the ground. So you see me fiddling a lot with the roof in this build because I was trying to figure out how to make the roof work. Specifically, how to make that roof on the side of the house work while still also giving the house lots of windows. Another thing that was difficult about the exterior of this build was getting all of the wood paneling right. I didn't want to just use one color on the exterior of the build because generally builds just look more interesting. The exterior of builds just look more interesting when you use different wall swatches. But I didn't really know how to go about that when I was planning on using wood paneling for all of them. So you can see that I've got this dark wood paneling. I forget which pack that's from. It may be from Spa Day. I think it's from Spa Day. So I've got this dark, almost cherry wood, this wood that has a bit of a red tone underneath. And that part of the house that sticks out, that's actually going to end up becoming the front of the house. In the original, that part of the house was also a wood paneling, and so I was trying to figure out how to match different shades of wood, essentially, because I didn't want it to be too matchy-matchy, but I didn't want them to clash, so I had a little trouble figuring that out. You'll see me go through a bunch of different swatches for that part of the house later on in the video, and it was ridiculous because I kept changing my mind. I could not decide at all. In the end, I think it worked out pretty well. So let me know what you think of this build. There is one thing I want to say about this build. So the reason why it's my favorite build that I've ever done so far was because I had so much fun with it. So much fun. I had a lot of fun with it because the interior it's honestly kind of fugly because it's just so bright and there are a lot of colors and patterns that sort of clash, but I think I make them work out. Let me know what you think. It's a very extra build, but I'm perfectly okay with that. So right about here is where you see me fiddling with with the color of the exterior wall on this front part of the house. I loved that green door. I was so happy when I found that I chose it immediately. I knew immediately that's the one that I wanted to use. But yeah, you're about to see me at the beginning of my fiddling with the wall color for this front part of the house. I actually end up going with the very first swatch, I believe, that I had chosen to go with in the beginning, but I change it like 3 or 4 times as I'm building this. So that one right there, the one from Outdoor Retreat, is not the one that I end up going with in the end. I actually end up going with the one that we just got from Seasons. You'll see me apply that Seasons wall texture almost right away, and then I go back and I change it, and then I put it back on, and then I change it again. So I was really indecisive with it, but I like how it looked in the end. Like I said, I had a lot of trouble getting the side roofs of the house to work out the way that I wanted them to because, well, first of all, I had to get the angles of them right, so they would actually the different pieces of roof would line up with each other. But also, I wanted to make some parts of the house, of the side of the house, stick out because I wanted there to be windows in this places, and also because I just wanted the side of the house to have a bit more dimension, but I kept encountering the problem of the roof causing the walls to clip, so that even when you looked out the walls with the walls up, it would still show like part of the interior, which it really bothered me, but I ended up figuring out that if you make the roof, I don't know how to explain this exactly, but if you make the roof only 1 tile wide, but extend the eaves of the roof as far as they can possibly go, you can make those eaves go through the wall without them making the wall clip. So that was a fun trick that I learned. You can see that I'm trying also to change up the foundation for this front part of the build. So I was imagining that this front part of the build was something that was actually added on later, which was why the foundation is different from the rest of the house as well as the wall texture. Oh, but like I was saying earlier, I chose to build this house in Granite Falls just because it was the perfect location for a lake house. It was just gorgeous, and the scenery really suited the vibe of the house that I was going for. But as you know, Granite Falls is a destination world, not a residential world, so Sims can't actually live there. They can only go on vacation there. I did consider putting this house somewhere in Windenburg, I think, but it didn't look exactly like I wanted it to look. It looked like, I don't know, it didn't fit in with the rest of the houses in Windenburg, and I didn't really feel like I should put a 70s themed house in the middle of what's supposed to be like Bavaria. So if you find a better place to put this house, somewhere that's in a residential world, let me know in the comments below. I'd be really interested to know because I love this house and I actually want to play in it on my own. But you know, when a house is in a destination world, you can only go on vacation there, which is really annoying. I hate destination worlds in The Sims. I really do, and I don't understand why there has to be a difference between destination worlds and residential worlds. I don't understand why all worlds can't just be residential worlds, because it seems like that would open up The Sims to people who don't just live in the US. So, for instance, Selva Dorada. Selva Dorada is clearly like a South American like world, and it would be really cool to play The Sims as a Selva Doradian. However, because you can't live there and because you could only go on vacation there, you can't really do that. And so I think that, yeah, if destination worlds were just eliminated and were turned into residential worlds, that would be a way to incorporate other cultures and to make it so that The Sims wasn't so clearly an American game. So you can see me now just doing some landscaping around the house. The landscaping for this build was pretty easy because it was pretty simple. I just took that tall grass, that wild grass, I sized it up sometimes, and I put it all around the house, and I figured I could do that because this is supposed to be an outdoor retreat, so it's not supposed to have a perfectly manicured lawn. I also used a lot of the short grass, and I put rocks everywhere. I actually learned the rock trick from watching Dr. Ashley. So when she landscapes, she tends to, like I did here, to start with some greenery and then to go around and just place random rocks everywhere. I didn't do that before. I think just because I always forget that the rocks are available to me. But when I saw her doing that in one of her recent builds, I was like, oh, that is a great way to make the landscaping look like it's natural and like the house has been lived in. So because this is an outdoor retreat, I also wanted to include some items from Outdoor Retreat, which is why I have the horseshoe pit and the campfire. And yeah, I really like how the exterior of this house looks. I think it looks interesting and it looks a little antiquated, but I still think it looks pretty cool. So we're moving on now to the interior of the build, and you can see me just laying out all of the possible wallpapers from Peacemaker's wallpaper pack that I was considering using, and I was just playing around with putting them around the house. I also tried to play around with some of the funky wallpapers, or excuse me, the groovy wallpapers that were available to us in just The Sims. I think those are all actually base game wallpapers, but I was playing around with those for a while because I knew that because I use CC, that would make this build less downloadable. So I was trying to figure out if I could find wallpapers or wall textures from the base game or one of the packs that could work as substitutes, but honestly, I couldn't find any. I'm in love with these Peacemaker wallpapers. A few of them are too busy for me just because the print is so small. I really love that red one with the blue flowers, even though I don't actually end up using that in the build. I don't end up using it because I decided to go with a couple other different wallpapers that had more of a green and yellowish texture, and that one it just didn't go with the rest of them, so it didn't feel like it was part of a cohesive idea, so I ended up deciding not to use that in the end, although before I take Peacemaker's wallpapers out of my game, I will definitely use that wallpaper in another build. So you can see that I'm working on furnishing the main living space of the house, and I cut a lot of me just picking out rugs and picking out furniture pieces because it was just ridiculous. I did a very similar thing to what I did with the wallpaper, where I just pulled out all of the rugs and all of the couches that I thought I would possibly want to use, and then fiddled around with the swatches to see which ones would complement each other and which ones wouldn't. I cut all that out just because, yeah, for a while the room just had like 20 rugs in it, and I just eliminated them one by one. The same with the couches. There were so many couches in the room. So I cut that out just because, well, this video is already pretty long, and it was just footage of me choosing things. So by the time you see me start this living room part of the build, the main living space, because there are actually two living rooms, one's more of a family room, but I started recording then because, well, then you wouldn't be looking at me choosing things, you would actually be looking at me furnishing a room. So I had a little bit of trouble with the fireplace in this build because I couldn't really find a fireplace that I wanted. I really wanted to use one of the fireplaces that came with the holiday stuff and seasons, but none of those swatches are ribbonless or garlandless. I wanted to use one of those just because of its size, but I ended up going with this one from Cats and Dogs that I do like because it looks like the kind of fireplace that you would find in a cabin. I love that I went with that zebra print for the rug under the dining table. I just think it looks so cool, and it's just a weird but strangely cohesive, at least I think, pop of an alternative texture in this room, and I was just so surprised when I found that and that it worked so well. So I also knew from the inspiration pictures that I wanted to include a bar in this open living space, but I had a little trouble figuring out exactly where I wanted the bar to go, so I ended up making the house just a little bit longer to fit it in, and I also end up moving the door that leads into the kitchen over one square, so I had a little bit more room from it. I love the chairs that I use, the bar stools that I use. They're from the Bowling Night stuff pack. I don't think that they're actually part of Peacemaker's CC stuff pack, but I love them because they have these cute little orange stripes, and also because they're a good mix of a dark wood with a white wood, so they help brighten up the room just a little bit. So you can see me now adding in the main lighting unit in the living room, which is actually composed of several different lamps. I'm kind of regretting making those lamps as big as I did, but I think it's cool that I was able to make sort of a different lighting structure by just hanging a bunch of them up. And I think that that lighting fixture also just helped fill up the upper space of that room because that room is 2 stories tall, so there was a lot of empty space up there. I also had some trouble trying to figure out how to make the space seem taller with the decor items because I felt like I needed a decor item, some sort of wall piece that would go onto both the lower level and the top level, but I couldn't figure out which one I wanted to use. I tried out a bunch of different ones, and in the end I decided to go with the wall sculpture that we got from the Bowling Night stuff pack, the one that's filled with bowling memorabilia, which I kind of didn't want to include because I didn't want to make it necessary for the Sims who live in this house to be avid bowling fans, but I guess they are now. I guess they are. Moving on now to the family room. So the family room is probably my favorite room in this whole house. Well, I don't know. I really like one of the bedrooms as well, but I really like the family room because it's this strange clash of all of these really bright colors. Orange and green are actually complementary colors, I think. They're almost opposite of each other on the color wheel. And I think that most of the time when I see them together, I'm just like, ooh, that is fugly. But because I was going for a 70s style interior, I felt like I could make it a little bit fugglier than usual. So I did the same thing that I did in the main living space where I picked out a bunch of rugs in the beginning and I cut that part out because I didn't want you to just have to look at me choosing things for a while. I used these curtains, these green and orange curtains that we got with Seasons. Thank God we got more curtains with the Seasons pack because Lord knows we needed them. But this family room is more of, it's kind of a game room, actually. I end up including a dartboard in the family room as well as a foosball table, I believe. You see me playing around with the idea of putting a fish tank in there, but it was huge and also didn't really fit, and I also had this huge empty hallway in another part of the house that it just seemed to suit better. And I also considered putting a Wake the Llama table or a card table in there as well, but it was kind of too big and I didn't really find any swatches that I liked. I was only really a fan of the dark wood one, and I just didn't like it enough to keep it in there. I know I've said this before, but I love that coffee table that we got with Seasons. I love it so much. I love every swatch of it, and I want to use it in every build. So I actually, when I was trying to figure out where to place the dartboard, I ended up putting it kind of in that hallway part near the entrance to the main living space. But for a while, I was kind of concerned about where to put the dartboard because I was thinking, well, if you put it in a hallway, what if a sim just rounds the corner and then they get their eye poked out with a dart? Doesn't that seem a little dangerous? But then I decided, it's the Sims. I don't think Sims can lose an eye, so I'll just put it there anyway. But you should be careful around dartboards and darts in your real house. Be careful about where you place them. Make sure they're not in a dangerous spot because my daddy lost an eye to a dartboard. That's a true story. He was, I think, like 9 years old when he just got too close to a dartboard when his brothers and sisters were playing darts and right in the eye. So an actually kind of funny part of that story is that, well, this part isn't funny, but his eye got infected for like a month and they were trying to figure out, the doctor and his mom were trying to figure out if they could somehow let him keep that eye even though it wouldn't be functional. But it got infected, and the doctor pulled her aside at one of their checkups and told her he's gonna have to lose that eye. And so my grandmother told me that she, on the car ride home, was trying to make my dad feel better about losing his eye before she actually told him that that they were gonna have to take it out by naming all of the celebrities she could think of that only had one eye, all of the one-eyed celebrities. And I guess he caught on to what she was getting at. And she told me that he cut her off and then patted her on the knee and said, "But Mother, I'll still be happy." So yeah, my dad has a glass eye. He used it to scare a lot of kids and my mom when they were still married by popping it out and leaving it on her pillow and that sort of thing. So there's the upside of losing an eye if you ever lose one. So moving on now to the kitchen. So you can see that I was still really indecisive at this point about what wall texture to use. in the kitchen. Throughout the house, I knew that I wanted to use a mix of paneling and wallpaper just because that seems in my mind to have a real 70s feel. But I couldn't decide which one to use in the kitchen because I was still really attached to that red one with the blue flowers. In the end, I'd go for the one that has the fruits that look like peaches on it. This kitchen has some very bold colors, very similar to the ones that are in the living room. The cabinets are very bright green. I use a super fugly linoleum that I think I would only use in a 70s style build, which, yeah, made using that linoleum fun. And I also end up using a lot of light brown decor items just to sort of bring the room together. I didn't want to use too many bright colored items just because the cabinets were so loud, but I did include that cute little curtain that came with Seasons. I think that is supposed to be like a wall decoration and not actually a curtain, but it worked perfectly as an over the sink curtain. So you can see that I was trying to decide which table to use. I knew that I wanted to use a round table, and I was really inclined to use that table that is a combination of several triangle-shaped end tables because that was one of the tables that came with Peacemaker's stuff pack, but I really wanted a table that had a mix of light and dark woods or some sort of wood color just to make it fit in more with the paneling. So I ended up in the end deciding not to use that Peacemaker dining table. I was also really indecisive about what color I wanted the refrigerator and the stove to be because my first inclination was to go with black, but then I kept second guessing myself because I didn't know if black really fit in with all of the dark woods in here, but I think that is what I end up going with in the end. I knew I wanted to use that refrigerator and stove set from the Jungle Adventure stuff pack just because the shape of it really fit in well with a 70s theme. But yeah, I couldn't decide on the colors for a while. So you can see me now just trying to figure out what bar stools to use in this room. I end up going with some orange, I think they're actually very modern shaped bar stools, but they could work for a 70s build too. And I was trying to decide what wall textures to put on here as well. I did consider using this tiling from the Vampires game pack for a while, but I really like the linoleum better. Even though it was fugly, it just seemed to go with the rest of the room. It was really fun to furnish an interior that was not at all my style. It was just fun to branch out and to be a little more playful because I ended up using a lot of things that I would never use otherwise. So I encourage you to build something that's not your style sometimes and just see what comes of it because it might end up being a lot of fun. Like I said, I had a lot of fun with this build and I think you'd have a lot of fun too. Moving on now to the upstairs bedroom. I guess this is technically the master bedroom because I actually don't think it's the biggest. I think that all of the bedrooms are around the same size, but it does have a bathroom attached to it, but it's a very, very, very small bathroom. I think it's only like 8 tiles big. So I don't know if you would really consider this a master bedroom because of that. Those paintings that are on the wall are paintings that I downloaded off of the gallery. They are paintings that are created by Sims who paint on canvases in the game. And if you don't know, lots of people on the gallery actually have Sims paint those paintings and then they upload them to the gallery's room. So off camera, I downloaded a few rooms and then picked out some paintings that I really liked because I kind of felt like I was running out of wall art in this build. So I found these very cute and sunny paintings. I really like that I used these white curtains with that very ornate brown trim just because I feel like that has a really 70s vibe to it. I also was excited to use this very, very out there chevron carpet. I don't know if I've ever actually used that in a build before, but if there was a time to use it, it was now. I decided to go with a dark brown bookshelf. I think that's the one from Seasons because I wanted to make it look like a built-in shelf. And I ended up putting a little seating area with that cute coffee table from, is it the movie night stuff pack? Or maybe City Living? I'm not sure. I bought those two things at the same time, so I can't differentiate between them. I have no idea which one is which. But I think it works really well there. I did play test this build, and that area actually did give me some trouble. There wasn't enough room for Sims to actually sit in that area, so I did fix that before I uploaded it to the gallery, just so you know. So now I'm just trying to figure out what to put on the walls because they just seemed a little empty. So I end up putting, yeah, that rug. I have no idea what pack that is from or if it's base game. I ended up putting that, it has a tree on it. I don't think I end up putting that in the kitchen too. I know you just saw it in the kitchen as well, but I'm pretty sure that I end up replacing the one in the kitchen with something else. And I also end up putting in a lot of shelves that I fill up with bowling related decor because, like I said earlier, that big wall decoration in the main living room downstairs sort of forced my Sims in this house to be avid bowlers, so I figured I had to incorporate some bowling memorabilia somewhere else in this build. But yeah, I really like how this bedroom turned out. It's not my favorite one. We'll get to my favorite one here in a minute, but I do think that it just looks really sunny and happy and bright and very, very cute. So moving on now to my favorite bedroom in the entire house. It is this bedroom that's clearly for a teenager. I thought that this bedroom would be good for someone like Hyde in that 70s show because, you know, it's got a lot of dark colors. It's got that dark plaid bedding. And I also found from the paintings that I downloaded off of the gallery, I don't know what you would call it. I guess it's a Freezer Bunny Floyd sort of print. You'll see it, it's above the bed, but it's a freezer bunny. I think it's a freezer bunny. Maybe it's a gnome. I think it's a gnome, actually. But it's got that very clearly Pink Floyd's The Wall inspired rainbow on it. But I really like this bedroom. I think it's very cool. I love that desk. That desk, I believe, actually came with the Bowling Night stuff pack. It wasn't a Peacemaker add-on, but I love it. I don't know if I've ever used it before, but I think that the print on it is just so cool. The only real trouble I had with this room was fitting all of the stuff in it that I wanted to fit in because it's a pretty narrow room, and so it was a little bit hard for me to include a study area, a clothing area, a recreation or TV area, and a bed area, but I did get it all to fit in the end. And I really like that I used those black and white and gray rugs from the toddler stuff pack. I sized them down to make them fit, but I don't think that I've ever used the muted tones of that rug before, and I thought that they fit perfectly here. Oh yeah, there you could see the Gnome Floyd, the Gnome Floyd painting. It's super cute. Also, that print with the three skateboards, if you look closely at it, so you could see that it looks like aliens abducting something, but if you look closely, the aliens are actually abducting cats, which I think is just adorable, super adorable. Moving on now to the third bedroom. So I had a little bit of trouble picking out a bed for this bedroom because I started with that wallpaper made by Peacemaker, and I really, really wanted to use that wallpaper, but I had some trouble finding a bed that matched it. Eventually, I found this blue bedspread on this bed that we got with Seasons, and I thought that that worked really well. Originally, I was trying to go with a pink bed or something like that, but I just thought that the blue one looked a lot better. Those two paintings with the freezer bunnies are ones that I found when I downloaded rooms off the gallery, and I love them. They're so cute. One thing that I really like about all of the paintings that The Sims create, or most of them anyway, is that they're kind of a riff on paintings in real life. So that Freezer Bunny one is very clearly a riff or a play on that Andy Warhol painting. The one with the Campbell soup cans and the Marilyn Monroe one. I think the Monroe one is still Andy Warhol, or maybe somebody else just took that style and applied it with a Marilyn Monroe theme. So I use this pink rug in this room just because I wanted to bring some more pink into it, and because the floor looked a little bare, although it's always weird to me when I use a rug on top of carpet because, like, what's the point? Actually, once when I was building a set for a TV skit that we were doing in one of my classes when I was in school, they called me out because we had laid down a big square of carpet for the set, But then I was like, we should use this rug on top of this carpet too. And they were like, who uses a rug on top of carpet? No one. And I was like, listen, I play The Sims. And actually, everyone around was like, oh, okay, we'll go for it. I really like those curtains that I used in this room, the blue ones. Those also came with seasons. So I used those curtains several times in this build. But yeah, I just wanted to fill this room with a lot of cheery things, including that cabinet that I think we got with, I think it's the Bowling Night stuff pack. It might be City Living. Like I said earlier, I can't tell the difference between the items in those packs because I bought them at the same time. But I think that that wardrobe has the perfect 70s vibe with the cute little flowers. Although it was a little bit difficult to match the wood color of that wardrobe to the other wood items in this room. That's why you see me pulling out so many desks for a while, because I couldn't figure out exactly how to incorporate it. I don't know if I end up changing the color of that wardrobe later on. I can't remember. But I also had a lot of fun with this room because I played around with some of the kids' toys. I use those buddies. One of them is the unicorn buddy, and the other is the dragon buddy. The ones that the kids punch and talk to and hug, or mostly punch if they're one of my Sims that I play with. I also included those cute lanterns above because I thought that the room needed a little bit more blue in it, and I thought that the prints were super cute, and I don't use those often, so I thought, well, why not use them here? So after I worked on this bedroom, I actually worked on the 2 bathrooms in this house. One is directly across the hall from the bedroom that I'm working on currently, and the other, like I said earlier, is a very tiny bathroom that's attached to the bedroom upstairs. I, however, did not include footage from me furnishing those bathrooms in this build because if a build's too long already, I'm not showing you the bathrooms. So now I'm just finishing up the build by doing a little bit of terrain painting. When I use terrain paint, I usually start by outlining the house just to make it look like it's not on top of, fully flourishing grass, but like it looks like it's been in the shade of the house a little bit to make it look like the house has been there for a while. And then I do the same thing with the plants around the yard and the trees. And then I use the terrain paint to create something that looks like footpaths, and that's usually when I call my builds done. So I really hope that you enjoyed this build. Like I said, this is my favorite build that I've done so far. Not necessarily because it's the one that I think looks the best, but because it's the one that I had the most fun with. Like I said earlier, you can download this build off the gallery if you so choose. I'll put all of my gallery info down in the description. I'll also put in the description box all of the links that you'll need to find Peacemaker's CC. I hope that you use this build and that you have a lot of fun with it. If you do, please send me screenshots. I'm on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Caligula, and I'd love to see this build in your game. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Please know how much I appreciate your love and support, and I will talk to you in another video very, very soon. Goodbye!